Call the Williams County Planning and Zoning Commission to order for Thursday, November 17th. Roll call, please.
Here.
Sherelle Shillo,
Here.
Dan Kalisle. Okay. Barry Ramberg,
Here.
Louise Scar,
Here.
Adam Nelson. Okay. Shane Cymbaluk,
Here.
James Burvig,
Here.
and Tate Cymbaluk.
Here, we do have a quorum. We'll proceed. Are there any changes to anything you want to add, Cameron? You good? I'm good. Okay, we're going to follow the agenda that's been presented. You've got the minutes from the October 20th meeting. What are the wishes?
Motion approved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any
James.
Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. First item on the Creek Township. Cameron, do you wish to add anything on this one?
Yes, thank you. Cameron Heimer, Development Services. Just briefly, I'm filling in for Sam today. We did meet and we kind of went over the agenda items, but I probably won't go as smooth as she did, but any questions, I'll try my best to answer them. So this item, first item on the agenda here, the applicant is requesting a minor subdivision to create 5 lots out of the existing single lot. The existing lot is roughly 20 acres. The newly created lots will vary in size from 2 to about 5 acres. Some of them won't meet the minimum lot size requirement that's required for rural residential zoning, and so the applicant has applied for a variance from that minimum lot size requirement. So there's 2 variances here, and then the second one is to extend the roadway, which the ordinance states that it shall not be longer than 600 feet, but they're looking to have it at 1,100 feet. Ultimately, the township, through a verbal phone call, did recommend denial on this project. We also received public comment that I believe you guys had received that I handed out before the meeting that came in after the staff reports were generated with some concerns from that property as well. As far as some of the code enforcement concerns that they had listed in that property, is you are probably aware, Williams County does not have a property maintenance code, meaning we don't have a code or anything against junk or rubbish. It's very difficult to enforce that type of code in a rural county setting. When we have these subdivisions that are a little closer together as far as the lots, usually we rely on covenants to take care of things like that. And I'll say one of the reasons why we've never really looked at adopting a code like that through the whole county is it would, in my opinion, affect a farmer that might have a couple old tractors that are rusty sitting in his field, which aren't a big deal, but it would also take care of this. And it's very hard to do a blanket property maintenance ordinance in a county setting. It's typically not the appropriate setting for it. There are ways to work on things like that, but so far it hasn't been entertained by the county commission. But when staff did go out there and conducted a site visit, there were multiple homes on each lot. By doing this subdivision, in my opinion, it would actually clean up that problem and make these into compliance because they'd be on their own individual lots. And so it would kind of take care of that issue at hand. The conditions that were listed here is to construct a turnaround on the south side of the site that has been approved by the county engineer, record a maintenance agreement, and construct any required improvements to the road as deemed necessary by the county engineer, obtain water board approval prior to recordation of the plat, record the plat, and adhere to the zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations. Wayne is here representing the highway department. I'm not sure if he has any comments, and I also believe Ed is here as well.
Okay, any questions for Cameron at this time? Or Wayne?
Cameron, when you say there's multiple places out there right now, are they all on like their own septic and their own water and all that now, or what are you?
So we're not sure. We were not able to find any building permits for those buildings. I believe they're all mobile homes. However, they more than likely predate the county when we started requiring or even having a building division or planning division. And we see that a lot in some of these properties that have stuff that's been there for years that it kind of predates that. Now, I can't guarantee that. I'm not sure when the homes exactly showed up, if they are predating or non-conforming to our building code or not, but I'm not sure.
So if we approve this to go ahead, how do we bring all that stuff up to code, or how do we go about, is that our job, or that's something you guys would go in after the fact and do, or what?
So as the homes are right now, because there's multiple homes on a single parcel within rural residential zoning, that in itself is not compliant with our zoning ordinance. But again, that question is still there, is when did they show up? When did that happen? So by creating this subdivision, now I'm just only speaking about the homes, compliance, by creating that, that would actually make them compliant because you would have a single home per parcel. As far as not having or not being able to find any building permits, that's usually not something that we would look into at this point because we would consider them a non-conforming use, meaning they were there before that requirement was in place. So we're not going to retroactively enforce that. Now, if they were to put a new home on the property, to take an old mobile home off, build a new home or put a new mobile home, at that time they would be required to come into compliance with our current building code and our current zoning ordinance.
Any other questions for Cameron? Okay, if not, I'm gonna open up the hearing. This is a public hearing. Any public input? Any public input? Last time, yep, come on up, Ed.
Ed Rintmacki, is this on? Okay. 49th Latitude Land Survey, I'm the surveyor on this project. I just wanted to give a little bit of background on this. The reason this is taking place essentially is because of when David Steen and his wife divorced sometime back. I don't even remember when that was, the date, but part of that agreement was she would be able to get like a 2.5, 3 acre parcel around the existing house, which would be kind of on the southern end of that 20 acres. Of course, it's never been done, and now they want to clean things up like Cameron mentioned. It kind of would, each place would have its own parcel. Currently, there are only 2 residences being occupied out there. One right up by 49th Street, which is one of David's sons, and then of course his ex-wife lives in that southern building. So essentially, that's the reason for moving forward with this project. And the other, I was going to mention with the variance for zoning, when I discussed this project with Sam, of course, the rural residential is 5 acres to 39 acres, and these parcels, some of them are smaller than that. The reason being that it's rural residential largely around there, rather than have a couple of urban residentials amongst all the rural residential, is the reason for the variance to allow rural residential on each lot. So if you have any questions.
Any questions for Ed? What we'll do, Ed, we'll go, go ahead.
Who actually owns the property?
It's I think it's in the estate of David Steen. I don't have that information.
Can you pull
in
that
front of me,
up?
I think, but
Oh,
yeah. So it's under David Steen, so it'd be his estate. He passed away, I think it was last spring or something like that. So.
okay. Anything else for Cameron or for Ed? Okay, if we do, Ed, we'll call you back up.
Okay.
Okay, last time, any public input? Close the hearing. What are the comments, wishes, questions?
What was you said the township called in? Did what the reasoning behind that, or is it, just 'cause, or?
Sam, when we spoke, and I should say for disclosure, the public comment we received is also the township chairman, but he sent that as himself, not as representing the township. But when he also called representing the township, the concerns were recommend denial based upon existing and potential traffic volume created on a minimum maintenance road. But the homes are already there, so in staff's opinion, you're not creating more traffic, you're just cleaning up the parcels.
To understand this, Chris, so if this does get approved, it's gonna force the issue of cleaning it up, correct?
No, because again, we don't have a property maintenance code in the county. It would, though, fix the issue of having multiple homes on a single parcel. Ed said only 2 are occupied, so even
Right.
2 on rural residential is technically against our zoning ordinance. So by subdividing, that issue would no longer be considered out of compliance because they're on their own parcel.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
So if they're dividing
they're divided out, then they potentially could be sold. Because right now it's just one piece of land by a family. So if it's separated within the 19 acres through the years, it could then just become actual structures of houses there, right? I mean, potentially.
Potentially, yeah, depending on what any future, if they do sell it, I don't know if that's their intentions, but yeah, they could certainly build a house, a stick-built structure.
Then with the road maintenance is who, so it was the county would be responsible for the road maintenance? It would be the township?
Well, I'd probably defer to Wayne if you don't mind. He's probably a little more familiar with that process than I am.
That's all right. Can you hear me? Okay, they got it all fixed. All right. Oh, all right. The road maintenance is between the owners of the lots. And so they'll be responsible for maintaining the ownership themselves.
So where's-
Is that a township road currently?
No, I think 49th, the street that there is. Yeah, 49th is being maintained by the township. Is private, when the maintenance agreement will be that the lot owners will have to take care of that roadway. Yeah. Yeah, there's a template, they have to fill it out, and then it's approved by the planning office and by Karen.
So where's the minimum maintenance road that they're referencing?
I think they were referring to the township, but maybe they were talking about 49th. It's a nice road. Yeah.
We weren't quite positive on which one they were speaking about, because we kind of read it as they were just against it in general, and so they weren't too specific.
So where's their road that's gonna service all these lots going through?
Can you pull up the plat? Yeah,
There should be a plat also in your
yeah,
staff report.
and what Ed has done on that first plat is he's got just the center line of the easement. Yeah. Yes. And what I've asked him to do is to show that, yes, right there. What's that? Yes, it is going through the middle of all these lots.
So, and there will be a access easement granted to everybody behind the first
To
lot?
everybody, it'll be a 50-foot wide easement, and then the turnaround will have to be 80 feet wide, 80 feet in width.
With it being a private road, they'll still have setbacks on that, won't they?
I've made a comment for the subdivision to be approved. Ed will have to provide us with those setbacks. It's hard to tell. You know, it's even hard to tell until he spoke tonight that there's 2 units out there. But the one on the south side looks like it's very, very close, may even be in the right-of-way. And so we'll have to get that information and then address that with a variance.
If your road goes right through the middle of your lot, aren't they kind of unbuildable?
Well, maybe Ed can talk to which lots are being used, and if we could turn off the shading, then maybe you could see the one lot, and maybe Ed will have to help out here.
I think on this map, Michelle, it's going to be under the details on the left there. It should be a zoning layer when you go to content. The center tab there, content. Should be zoning new right there. Yep.
And so there you see the road. Ed, do you know which homes are being occupied? And so the northeast corner, that one right there, there is a driveway there, and I have seen a car there and tracks going in and out. And then the other one is way to the south, not that far, head up to the right there. Is that correct? Yeah. And so that's the other home that's being occupied. And you can see the road is coming down, and it's very close. Do you know if that is in the right of way or? But it's very close. Okay. So he'll have to give us that information before the plat can be completed.
And I should add, typically, if something's within a 25% of the requirement, I am able to do an administrative variance. In a situation like this, it would usually be an administrative process, as long as it's within that 25% range. Anything beyond that typically would have to be approved by the board.
Is that a house down where that turnaround thing is?
No, I don't think so. Ed said there's two, and there's all sorts of buildings out there.
So what's the point of making 5 lots out of it when the road cuts through the middle of it and makes some of the lots really difficult to build on?
Ed, can you answer that?
I should have mentioned this when I was up here the first time. I remembered when, as soon as I got back to my seat. There's the siblings, that's the reason for the dividing the separate lots. So one of David's sons, like I mentioned, is in that northeast corner. Then one of the daughters is gonna get the stuff in that larger tract, roughly 5.5 acres. And then of course, the mother is getting which is lot 3 on your plat, and then lot 4 would be a co-ownership between 2 of the daughters. So it's an agreement amongst the family to divide it up this way, so. It's not the best configuration, but at the same time, I think that it's a feasible option.
Why have to, go build a whole new road off to the west side of the property line? But, it's by far not ideal, but it is a family issue, I guess, but.
I do have the setback numbers if you'd like to hear those for this zoning district. So the front is 50 feet, side is 20 feet, and rear is 20 feet from the structure. And then any non-public road easement is 50 feet. I'm sorry, I'm reading this as I'm going along, so that's why. And then, of course, section line would be the same in any district, 133 feet, but that's not the situation out here.
Can you say those?
Sure, yeah. So front is 50 feet, side's 20, rear is 20, and from any non-public road easement is 50 feet.
My only thing, Barry, I mean, what you're talking about is if we approve this and update it, so someone goes to build there, now they've got to follow the code, just because somebody else has got a house close to the road now, when they come in to build, they're gonna have to follow the new setback.
Well, certainly, yeah, if there's any new construction or replacement of the existing buildings, like Sam said, I mean, it would have to be done accordingly then, but, because seeing how we don't know how long this has been there already, I mean, it may predate all of our ordinances, I don't know.
Yeah, and I should probably add, I'm not going to have somebody move their home just to conform to this. I mean, the common sense says that.
Any other questions for these guys? This is an interesting one. What are the wishes? Township said no. The board did, correct?
The chairman did, yes. And we have, just for the record too, we have had issues, I shouldn't say issues, but we have had situations in the past with this township where they actually refused to sign the plat, and then Ed has to come back to the Board of County Commissioners to override that because unfortunately administratively I can't. So there's a history here.
Got it. Okay, what are the wishes? What are your wishes, guys? To approve with staff comments or disapprove?
I would make a motion to approve with staff comments and just for the fact that they do know if there's any new construction or anything like that, that'll have to be up to code then, or up to following the ordinances.
We'll make sure they're informed of that. And could I just ask you to specify both variances, because there's two variances within this request? If that's something you agree with. Oh, that's fine. So the two variances, well, one was for variance to have the minimum lot size reduced to keep that in rural residential. And the second variance was a variance from section 5-2-3 for the length of the road.
Correct, yep.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve with staff comments and the variances as presented. Is there a second to that motion? Second time, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second. That was Sherelle.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Sherelle,
No.
Dan is gone. Shane,
No.
Louise,
No.
Barry,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Mark,
No.
and Tate.
No. Motion fails for approval. So now, if I understand this correctly, Karen would tell us, if I recall, that we have to have a motion then. We can't go up with a motion to the county commission with a do not pass on this motion. I don't agree with that, but, so now we need, yeah, there's a catch in there. Is that what it is, to deny?
Well, I
It is,
actually,
it's a real sticky situation, I just, so there was a motion to approve, it did not pass, so now we need a motion to,
Yes,
I
I believe you
believe-
are correct, because if the motion was to
That's
deny, then we would leave it as is, but you are correct, because it was a motion to pass, but it did not pass. Then
so
I
now we have to go
believe-
to the next step.
Yeah.
So, yes, so now, would somebody willing to make a motion to that effect?
I move that we deny this request.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion to deny the request. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Shane,
yes.
Louise,
Yes.
Barry,
No,
James,
No.
Tate,
Yes,
Mark,
Yes.
motion carries. Item number 2, Ed's up again. Change to rural residential. It's currently zoned agriculture, or it's currently within the agricultural district. It's out in Champion Township. Cameron, anything you wish to add on this one?
Yeah, so this one, as you said, they're requesting a zone change to rural residential. It'd be a minor subdivision, it'd create 2 lots. The parent lot is a quarter section. It's within the ag zoning district. The newly created lots will be 152 acres roughly and 8. The 52-acre lot will remain in the ag zoning district, while the applicant is requesting a zone change to rural residential for the proposed 7.9-acre lot. The purpose of the 7.9-acre lot will be to encompass the existing home and farm buildings. Access to the existing homes off 118th Avenue Northwest, and the larger property can be accessed off 118th or 66th Street. This is also going through the county's minor subdivision process, so the plat is technically correct. It's ready for recordation, contingent upon approval of the zone change request. Township didn't leave a comment, but they did recommend approval of it. And 2 staff comments are recordation of the plat and to adhere to our zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Cameron? If not, we're going to proceed. This is a public hearing. Any public input? Any public input? Third and final time, any public input? Close the hearing. What are the wishes of the board?
I would make a motion to approve following staff comments.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Just to be sure, that was Louise that did the second, correct?
Be a second.
All right. Adam. Oh, he's not here. Sherelle,
Yes.
Shane,
Yes.
Louise,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
and Tate.
Yes, motion carries. Next item, under old business, this is from the last meeting, Angela Black for a CUP out for agri/tourism, outdoor recreation. It's currently 10 plus or minus acres. It's within light industrial, and it's out in Missouri Ridge Township. So hold 1 second, Angela, hold on. No, you're good, you can stand there, just wait for 1 second. Cameron, do you want to add anything on this one?
Yeah, just briefly, as you're aware, this was tabled at the last meeting because the commission had wanted to hear from the applicant to get a better understanding of how the mixed use of industrial and the recreational activities would play out in that area.
Got it. Thanks, sir. All right, you just have to state your name.
Angela Black. All right, I apologize for not making the last meeting. I had my dates mixed up. Okay, so, are you guys able to pull up the site plan? And that, I mean, that's a good one too, but the,
You should have one in your
With the
packet as
stormwater.
well.
yes. So the one I'm looking for. And then I also brought back from 2020, or, I don't know if you guys want to look at this. Whenever we had it rezoned, you need to see this.
Oh, no, that's okay. Thank you, though. And there is some, rezoning history is also in the staff packet. I mean, you can certainly ask the chair if you want to provide more.
Of who we are as a company. Yep. And then I also ended up bringing our building design and permit. And so the permit was actually paid for on 7/22/21. So we had a little bit of a setback because we had our pandemic year last year. We had COVID twice, and my husband had a shattered foot. So financially, moving forward, it was really difficult. But this is the building design. I don't know if you guys need this. Parking.
Concern was you were having, let's say, some as a oil field service trucks or whatever have you, going into the yard, and then we're gonna have people bringing their kids or whomever out there. That was the concern. Kind of explain that, I think. Is that a fair statement, you guys?
Yep.
I think that was the issue of concern.
So we just have a company truck. We don't have 18-wheelers, big, heavy equipment. We just have a loader. We just recently sold one of our loaders. So we use that. That helps us with the corn maze, and then also to pick up stuff that we need whenever we do need to utilize it. So whenever you come into the parking lot, so this is part of the stormwater management plan, that U shape that's right there. So where you kind of see that curve to go around where the corn is, like for the crop. Yep, so that's the bottom of the hill. So we just do that, so it's a steep slope that goes up to the top. So the construction, where it would stop for the stormwater management plan, would be right where that cross is at. So where y'all's TV splits right in the middle. Pretty much that's the back end of the stormwater management plan. So if you go straight, it'll be in a straight in alignment with the U-shaped driveway. Going straight, that's the only section it takes up for the future building. And it's actually set up as a phase 1, phase 2. So we went with the shop design that would be a 54 by 60 shop. And the second phase, if we ever did get to that point, it would be the building size would be like an 80 by 100. But I don't foresee us getting to that point. However, the parking plan, during the corn maze, they come over, they take that first entrance and they go over there. Nope, that's just us feeding our chickens and pigs. But straight over there to your right. So that first square, I'm not good with the northwest. Go further up with the arrow. Up, 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 up. So that whole square over there is where the parking's at, where people park at. They'll just pull right on in and park their vehicles, and I have flags that are set up for it. It will be gravel, not concrete, but the parking, I don't know if do y'all have the site plan for the parking whenever I submitted that for the actual Blackswell services? Whenever I submitted that, because that completed it in order for me to get the permit, it would be right on the right-hand side of the building. Pretty much, so right where you see go back a little bit. It's about 100, go up. Yeah, it'll be up a little bit closer towards, sorry, where you see the U shape. Oh, I wish I had a thing to point. Take the arrow up, up. So right, go down to your left. Yep, so that's gonna be the front of the building, right there. And it's a 54 by 60, and it'll sit right on that. The stormwater management plan goes all the way back to where you see that ground shaved right there, yep. And that was, the stormwater management plan was built off of first and second phase. So if there's ever a future building, like 2 buildings. So the first building will only take up 54 feet wide and then 60 feet long, and that little, I wish I could touch it. Because we don't have any. If we were operating 100% as Blackswell services and doing the corn maze at the same time, we just park our stuff inside the truck. There's never any traffic that goes through the parking lot. If if it did come to that point, just say worst case scenario, we would just go in through that entrance there for the corn maze, and then we could use that other entrance for the BWS. But it's literally my husband and I, and we just park our stuff. That's the reason why we needed the shop, so we just had a place to put our items. But we have been driving diagonal over there on that corner lot to cut onto the property up at the very top. Yep, right where the arrow is at. So we can drive through that way. We've had some guests did not follow the protocol to come into that U shape and cut straight through to park. But I could create another culvert right there, and that can be another, entrance and exit, and then they can use that middle one. Yes, because the design that we plan on doing, it's not your standard shop. It's not like a metal building or anything. We plan on doing it built like, my first initial plan was to have it designed like the Winsong homes, where it's built something like that. But I want to have like a log look on the outside of the building. And I could have, I don't know if you guys know the wood fence that's up there, the Harley Davidson, the horizontal ones. I could have that go around if that's needed. But the type of work that we do and how busy we are, it would never harm any people, or there would never be any interference with it.
You guys jump in and ask questions too. What are your hours of operation? More
Pretty
so
much.
for the corn maze, I guess, that the recreational side of things.
So this year we ended up doing it Thursday through Sunday, 12 to 7. Thursday and Friday, it was slow because of school. We didn't have as many traffic flow until later in the afternoon. So really Saturday, Friday afternoon, and Sunday, it became busier, and I just kept my hours 12 to 7. And then whenever it came closer to Halloween, we did 12 to 7, and then we did like 8 to 11 on Friday and Saturday for Halloween.
Okay, scenario, I don't know what your oil field business is, but you,
So what we do, we're preventative maintenance. We go out, we service the wellheads. So we're greasing, we do like valve swaps, pressure testing, not the big trucks. We have a portable unit that fits inside of our truck, and we can go out there and test. But all of our work, we've been doing this since 19. It's out in the field. We don't have anything that requires to be in a shop, other than the fact that we couldn't start our air compressors because it was cold out, and then not having tools all over the place.
so when you bring trucks or trailers into your yard, do they go in the shop or do they sit outside with stuff on
Right
them?
now, they're sitting outside. In that back corner, those are our connexes, and that's where we store our stuff inside there. And so it's a huge lot. And that's like the little tiny bit of stuff that we have. And we had 2 loaders parked right there, but we only have 1 now. And that we have a truck. That truck we no longer have. And we have a 30-foot gooseneck trailer that we park back there. So that's out of sight, out of mind. Nobody could ever see it. And that's kind of where we parked that at. We were thinking about putting a little picket fence up there because, to me, I'm about like hiding and image and landscape. But it won't ever interfere with anybody.
I think our concern, and I guess I'm maybe speaking out, is your business right now is just this. So if you guys branch into something else, and
So what we
our concern is that one of your hands comes driving in with the truck and trailer and jumps out, and
We
he
don't
goes home
have-
at 6 o'clock. What's on that trailer that's gonna, little kids are gonna wanna go play around, or there's gonna be something messing around. There's gotta be some kind of a barrier, I think, built between your shop and this area here, so they cannot get into that area.
And yeah, and that's where I was saying right there, we can put a fence up right over there, but that's way on the back corner and nobody accesses that. That's where our corn maze is at, and all of our activities. I don't know if you guys can pull up Google and look up Black's Maze of Dreams. You guys can see images and pictures of like where the activities are, but it's that top corner over. That corner over there. I can create a path to where it comes over here and do like a boardwalk or a stepping stone path, something that's. Shop? Nothing's ever parked out. Yep, nothing's ever outside other than that corner, but yes, I can put a fence up. I can do a 4-foot fence around the whole stormwater management plan. I could do a privacy fence around it, whatever is acceptable. But with what we do, we have, this is my oldest son, but we have a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old. We're always down there. They're always involved. Of course, we don't have a building there right now, but there is no danger. But operating the 2, I can put a fence up and create a whole separate entrance, exit.
I think that's our main issue, is if you have a plan where you were to fence around your shop so that that's separated from any other recreational activities you had going on, I think that would probably.
I can come up with something that's nice.
That would probably meet most
I
of
wouldn't
our
want it,
concerns.
yeah. Yes, and that was my whole argument with the zone change, because they could go over to the wells and play on it, and to turn that into residential or anything of that nature, we can tell our kids no however many times, and then they'll still get into mischief or get into trouble. So that's our number 1 priority, making sure that we're compliant, and then we can do whatever we can to prevent any type of injury. But I know this is a backup plan, a second adventure.
So just going back through the stuff, the permitting to build the shop that you requested, that
Yes.
expires in 2 months, right?
Okay, so I'm not, so we ended up having an extension on it. And so we've kind of done things backwards. We paid for the water to get put in, and that's part of for the building. So that got pipelined into the back, came up over to this side. We've already dredged in 2 hydrants going into the top half, flushing right there with the corn, the front of the corn. And the hose stops there to where the future building will be at. And then we're in the process of paying for the electric to get put on the property. And part of the other one was the stormwater management plan. That was never there. It was just all bare land. So we've already put the culverts in, the ponds, a lot of dirt work. That's part of this building project. And so right before this cold snap, which we'll still move forward and do the footings. But from my understanding, by breaking the ground and doing the stormwater management plan, we've already started our permit process. It's just, again, last year with the COVID and everything else, we just couldn't, it wasn't feasible to build financially. I was just gonna say, but the date whenever I paid for it was on 7/22/21, and then it ended up, I didn't realize it came to expiring. And that's whenever I called and I had it extended, but I spoke to him like 2 or 3 times, and that's whenever I mentioned about us having COVID and my husband shattering his foot. So they extended out again, and I guess if that's 2 months that we have left, I'm not sure how long.
Yeah, thank you. There was an administrative extension granted, but it does expire at the end of the year. The buildings would need to be erected, and so it will revert back to rural residential by December 31st. Of course, we do realize that not a lot of building goes on in the winter, but there has to be deadlines set, no matter the time of year. The original zone change was approved back in January of 2020, and per the Board of County Commissioners list of requirements, one of them was to have building start within 18 months of the construction start from when that zone change was originally approved, not from when the building permit was pulled, but from when the zone change was done. So I've already granted one administrative renewal, and I'm cut off at that. From there, it would either revert back or she'd have to come back, reapply for a zone change.
That's exactly what I was getting at, because I think one of the pieces last time is it almost feels like there's a lot of moving parts. Like it said, like hot tub, rock climbing wall, like,
Well, they told me to
Awesome
put
stuff.
whatever I needed, like anything
Like
and
the
everything I
vision.
can think of with my
Yeah.
vision of what I could want to do with this land, do
For
it.
sure.
Because if you don't put it in there and then you come up with an idea, then you got to go through this whole process again. So I did what they asked me to do.
yeah, I hear you.
And so
So no, I mean, it's cool to see that stuff. The concern then becomes a lot of moving pieces. And so the one thing what we kind of picked up on last time was that the building wasn't actually built yet. So just trying to understand like where the chips fall to understand like, do you need fences? Because yeah, my kids, they're gonna dart towards a truck. Any truck
Yep.
looks awesome to them.
Yep.
So yeah, just trying to understand that. And then if you have to reapply for the building permit and we approve for like the recreational, if we approve for the recreational, you'll still have to come back for the building permit for the Black Hills. Is that right?
Building permits don't take board approval. They're done administratively, but in order to build an industrial or a oil well service shop, you have to have the zoning in place, and that's what's going to revert is the zoning.
So with him mentioning about 2020, whenever he applied for this, in 2020, we didn't know the pandemic was going to take place. A lot of businesses shut down, no work, and then we weren't one of them. We continued to keep working, and then it was the end of 2020. That's whenever it hit us going into this time. So we never, I'm trying to keep my emotions back, but it's something that was unpredictable. So if it was, if it was normal situations, and then I can understand like cutting it off, reapplying, and
I do think there are circumstances that were just out of everyone's control. And I would like to think, okay, I'm not putting you on the spot or Barry, there's some common sense approach to some of this. That's just, they can't help. Y'all couldn't help it.
Well, I
Just
do have
kinda got stuck.
a question about this though, but if, doesn't putting in the water and doing the dirt work count as starting the building?
I would certainly think that it's the cart and the horse thing, right? I mean, you put your water down first, then you get your flow. I mean, the way I built stuff is I'm thinking they're already, they're well on their way of in the construction part of it. That's my train of thought anyway, that I'm thinking that I would have a hard time saying that they haven't started. Well, and there's no doubt, I mean, obviously, we don't want, the kids, getting themselves into trouble, but, I mean, there's oil, there's pumping units, and I mean, it's like, you bring your kids out there, it is kind of your problem to take care, keep track of your own kids too, right? So, I mean,
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I should probably clarify. I did grant 2 extensions, but administratively, I get my hands tied where I'm not always able to, even if it's a common sense approach, to allow something. Correct, and I certainly understand the hardships. Yeah, as you had mentioned, Commissioner, that we've all experienced that throughout these past couple of years. Another thing I did want to add to is I spoke with Sam, and we're trying to brainstorm because we are trying to find the best approach for this. And as you said, there is a lot of moving parts with this process. And we wanted to find a way to where for this fall season, she was able to operate without waiting for this period through the conditional use permit process. And as you're aware, she does have a TUP, a temporary use permit. And it was kind of, in my opinion, that with all the moving parts, that a TUP would still probably be appropriate. With a TUP, she can run for 14 non-consecutive days throughout the year, up to 4 times a year. Because a lot of times in situations like this, the shops, the business, or something maybe similar is already in place, and then a conditional use permit is applied for. The applicant had actually come to us to apply for the CUP. We feel it's a little early, and so we still feel a TUP is appropriate. It still allows her to operate within the conditions of a TUP, and then if things evolve, if she builds a shop, decides to change wherever the site plan where the shop is located, if she has a conditional use permit now that requires certain things, that actually could affect it, and she'd have to reapply for a conditional use permit. So there is always that option to continue on with a TUP until she has more concrete plans or until the buildings are being erected, and then she could come in for an actual conditional use permit where she's not coming in to renew and not limited to those 14 consecutive days unless that's a condition that is approved. So there are options to help her to continue to have this, so.
Well, and I am still confused why they need to have an extension if they've already started construction.
We look for the buildings to be erected, concrete foundations poured. It's a little more than just, water is not something that we do through our office. That's not a permit that's pulled through our office. And site grading, when it stalls out for many months, we consider that a stalled building
Does
application.
it say that in our ordinances?
In our building or
No,
building
I mean,
code would.
in our zoning ordinance. Does it say that we only consider to have the footings poured or the building started, not the other parts of putting up the building?
That would be building code. That would cover anything with actual building or erections of buildings or foundations. And so the zoning ordinance only refers to the 18-month timeline for when they would revert back. However, the Board of Appeals for building and zoning would be to the county commission.
On the permit, the way it's listed is footing, foundation wall, drain tile, concrete slab, framing, insulation, and final. But in order to do all this stuff, before to have the final, you still need electricity, you still need water, you still need to have the stormwater management plan, started the dirt work in order to start to have the contractors out there, construction workers, be able to utilize. Now, granted, they could probably build with generators and come out their water tanks, whatever the case is. But whenever I had spoken, she's no longer here with the board, but she said by breaking ground and doing the stormwater management plan, that's starting the process So I guess however you guys want to see it. But then I was gonna backpedal a little bit with the temporary use permit. It's limited to the 14 days. And we, so I had kind of operated a couple of days before I knew I needed a temporary use permit. And that's whenever I was speaking with Sam and she said, well, you had to be compliant with the permit. And that's whenever we were talking about this one expiring. She noticed I didn't have one and I had applied for it to get the temporary use. However, kids had birthday parties out there over the summer. We had a blow up slide, water slide, and they were having fun. And so we can do stuff throughout the year. We can host birthday parties. I'm building, or I have already built some obstacle courses out there, but I would like to try to do zip lines and towers, like where you tightrope, walk back, and like have different ideas of fun family tourist events where they can still, I can still operate and have it going year round. And oh, I apologize. I was gonna also say that Blacksmiths of Dreams is also a DBA of Blackswell Services, and whether you classify us, which we are also an oil field company, but we provide services. I don't know if you need to see this or, but okay.
No, that's okay. Thank you, though.
But we operate underneath Blackswell Services. We're all one entity.
Yeah, I think Samantha had spoke to you and you'd provided that to her. In the back of the packet is a copy of some of that.
And then
Uh,
oops, sorry.
No, that's okay. With the with the TUP, it would be up to 56 days total a year. More than 14, it's 14 times 4, and so the TUP would allow 56 days to have these on here. And I did want to touch, and I apologize, Sherelle, maybe I wasn't fully understanding your question about the building and what we consider the beginning of a permit or beginning of construction, and that's honestly something that I have looked into. We don't have specific language in our zoning ordinance that says this is what's required to start that. Because I've already granted 2 administrative extensions, I, as the department, have discretion on whether I continue to do that or if I require an applicant to expire and go in front of the county commission to appeal it. But that's not always the case, and I think in this situation, I will reach out to my department portfolio commissioner and kind of get bounce ideas off him, which I should do, and then if he feels that it's acceptable to continue another administrative, I'll have to check the ordinance, but another administrative extension, I certainly would look into something like that. But by myself, after 2, I'm not really comfortable doing a third. But by myself.
Well, I guess I'm kind of like the rest of them. I'm in construction. I mean, we've never had a crap year like we had this year. We didn't get started in spring. We're already in the snow. I mean, that gives us very little, whether we go into our building codes and extend our times or whatever, but we're putting people in a pretty big bind, and I don't know what the time frame is here. I mean, I'm just saying generally, this year here for us to get projects in, we didn't do it either. So I think that's something we need to look at.
Yep, I certainly see that. I do want, to defend myself a little bit here. I've given 2 extensions. The building is frozen. I'm quite reasonable. And then we go for X amount of time and nothing's, and again, I understand the hardships, but nothing has been done. And so it's, and this isn't the only case. We have another one that's kind of the same situation. And I have to balance out, it's been a terrible couple of years with building, but versus how long do we leave this zoning open, because I'm kind of going against what the Board of County Commissioners voted on. And so it puts me in a kind of a tough spot too. And I do. And again, I've done 2 administrative extensions. I'm not saying I'm against it, and I do understand the reasoning. It's just my hands can get a little tied in these situations where I do need to talk to my portfolio commissioner, or the board needs to make that decision. And that's kind of where I feel it's at right now.
And I think one of the things as a board that we were worried about when we kind of installed this kind of a condition, where we were seeing people get things rezoned and then they didn't do anything to them. They just sat there with nothing, no work done, nothing done, but they had gotten them rezoned sort of on spec, thinking that maybe they could flip it. And we mostly wanted to stop that kind of thing. So, given the fact that we had lost at least a year, if not 2 years, due to COVID, and of course, as you said, with this year's buildings, I can understand why it's difficult, but, and if there's any way around it without having to go through the whole rezoning process, I really would kind of like to see that.
Jump in, because I think everybody's on the same page.
Yeah.
That's what I was just gonna say,
Trying to figure it out to make it work.
is the
And I
best next approach to take the pressure off you and the pressure off them, just go to the Board of Appeals, say, this is where I'm at, let's get this part taken care of, then come and work on the other parts, so we know what's gonna happen on the land zoning and stuff like that, instead of just, I mean, we don't know what's gonna happen one way or another. If you go to the Board of Appeals, get that taken care of first, then come back to us and say, we're good, now we've got a choice, what to do then.
Okay.
But we can do we could do a CUP regardless of the zoning. If it reverted to ag, we could still do a CUP on this piece.
Well, I've got a question regarding the general contractors told you or the subcontractors. I mean, what's a timeline that they've given you? Here's when we're gonna start doing the, moving dirt, and this is when we'll have the building up. I mean, what kind of timeline have they
So
given you? I think a
the-
realistic, if
So I'm
they've
gonna be
given you
pretty
anything.
honest. It was back in 2020 or 2021 whenever I went out on this adventure and we were getting quotes and bids, and whenever we had gotten a bid that it was going to cost us $1.2 million to build our shop. My husband is very diverse in what he can do. So we now hold our contractor's license along with our septic license. It just became more diverse because we had to redo our own septic in our backyard, but that's a different story. It varies. It can be a couple months, it could be 3 months, it could be 7 months. It just depends on the project. And if we were to, and what we had to do as contractors, we had to get 3 additional bids of other contractors and what their bids amount to in order to get the financing. So whenever COVID took place and we couldn't go that route, we started doing the work ourselves. And it's been very time consuming because it's juggling family life and our businesses. And so, it varies. If a construction company has a huge crew or a small crew,
So for now, you're the ones that would be putting it up and hiring the subs?
So we would hire subs. Yep. And then, but we still had to, right now, because financially it's better for us to do the work. We saved ourselves almost $13,000 just putting in the water. And then with that dirt work, I think it was $180,000, according to the bid that I looked at previously of doing the whole stormwater management plan. But we're not opposed to subbing out stuff too accordingly, depending if we're financially approved to get the loan to erect versus if we're paying out of pocket and doing stuff as we go.
So in that regard, are you pre-approved now, or are you just paying
Right now,
as you
we're
go?
paying as we go because being out of work for that period of time and then reestablishing everything all over again. We're almost there, but we're not quite there yet. So I'm thinking maybe midsummer we can go over that with the banks and see if that's an option. We should have jumped on it in 2020 at the very beginning, right after we purchased the land, but we didn't know.
I just wanted to respond to Commissioner Barstad. Yep, I would certainly help her out and show her the process to appeal to get that fast track. But I think first I'll still consult with my portfolio commissioner, and I should have added the building official, Doug, because that's actually quicker. Just if we can consult and come to an agreement that, another administrative renewal is appropriate, that's actually better than going through the appeal process. And will help the applicant as well if that's agreed upon. So I would probably try that first. And then if we feel like, this is something that the county commission needs to hear as a whole, then we will have her follow the appeal process to be heard by that. And then one other thing to note too, and I think part of the reason why this was also listed as a condition on the original CUP was there was some concerns with the spot zoning in the area with the residential properties. And because it was mentioned that if she were to sell it or something else were to come out there was some concern about, because the industrial nature of the parcel of what could potentially head out that way. And that was, that's been 2 years ago, but I believe that's why this was a listed condition, is I recall the township had some concerns, and so did some residents, but the applicant also lives near there, so there was a reason for why it was in that area. So right now, she has a TUP, and she can continue to get those TUPs up to 56 days a year, so nothing is stopping her from moving forward on that end of things. However, I think and I apologize because I'm speaking to Sam through this, but from my understanding is that she was looking for a more permanent, even though CUPs aren't permanent, but a more permanent solution to be able to have that security to know that she'll be able to continue not only to operate more than 56 days a year, but also just a security of having that permit in place. Correct. Yep. She's certainly not cut off by any means. You can continue.
And then I was just gonna say with the temporary use permit, whenever you go that route, it is more expensive to keep doing it that way, and you have less operational days versus if you do the conditional use permits at one-time fee and then an annual payment. And then whenever backtrack to whenever we initially got this rezone, the way they looked at it was the heavy industrial, light industrial, residential. So it tiered down instead of jumping from heavy industrial straight into residential. And the board then, that's whenever they saw that being reasonable. And my other thought was, even though this building, and this is whenever Sam and I were talking, but even though this building is meant for Black Swell services, and again, with us being all one entity, I do have ideas where I could use that building, light industrial, so it could be tourist or have indoor obstacle courses. I don't know if y'all been to Wolf Lodge, and
Yeah, and I should add, even with a conditional use permit, some of those major changes actually would require you to get a new permit or to amend the current one. Because there are major enough changes to where it actually wouldn't fall under the one you're seeking.
okay.
So this board can decide to approve the conditional use permit that the applicant is requesting with staff comment, or add or take away from those comments, or continue to make no decision, or, well, you would probably have to deny the conditional use permit as in a way of making no decision. That way it's not stuck at tabled at this level. And then she could continue to operate, but under, as she had mentioned, TUP. It is a little more money than a CUP, and it's not something that is continuously good as long as conditions are met. It is a temporary process. So yeah, the board would either approve, deny, to have it move forward to the county commission. Yep, so I would still meet with my portfolio commissioner and the building official in between, but I should also add that a CUP for this nature would be, even if the zoning were to revert, it's still an allowable use in the rural residential zoning. So it actually wouldn't necessarily affect, if it were approved today and at the Board of County Commissioners, and let's say her zoning did get changed in between that time, it wouldn't affect that CUP. It'd still be active and valid. It would affect the ability to build industrial shops on that parcel.
Right,
The reverting the zone change.
But so, but it like, and I'm assuming like every other conditional use, if the conditional use permit is approved and granted, then it just stays in effect. I mean, you're not limited to your 40, however many days, and then but it would be approved, it would be reissued administratively unless there is a future problem up until when she gets her building built and up and running, correct?
So I believe, not 100%, because I'm not Sam, but I believe we actually no longer, unless the board specifies they want renewals, we don't even renew them administratively. They're good to go. Unless there's a condition violation, then we make them come in front of the county commission to decide what they want to do. But we no longer require annual renewals for most things unless the board specifically asks us to. And there are a few that they have because they were concerned about some different things, but a situation like this, most likely there would be no annual renewal administratively or in front of the boards. So if that's a condition, sorry, to have it, So I would ask that be specific on what type of buffering you're looking
I
for, so
move
we can
that-
add that.
I move that we approve this conditional use permit with the staff comments, and additionally, that there be a fence that, do we have to specify what's kind of a fence?
In a perfect,
Security fence.
okay,
A security fence delineating the recreational area from the shop.
Okay, is there a second?
But, well, I will second it for
Okay.
discussion.
Okay, now go ahead, Barry.
Okay, I get the barrier that they're the fencing thing, but, security fence is very expensive. You know, but I think I got an idea what you're talking about, but. And that's, huh?
So what do we need on that? That we could just be reasonable and kind of use our common sense approach with some sort
in a perfect world, I'd say everybody kind of knows it, and I'm sure this isn't the case, but I have, believe it or not, had instances in the past where applicant was required to plant trees for a buffer strip, and they went out and put in about 6-inch tall pines that to this day are maybe a foot tall. So we do like specifics, so as staff, we can make sure that a true buffer strip is put in. I mean, really whatever this board feels
I
is
mean, you could have
appropriate.
a 6-foot or 8-foot chain link fence.
Can I say a child-proof fence?
I mean, trying to do something. So is that, are we comfortable with where we're at with what we're giving you? Some sort of a security fence. I mean, obviously there's different levels. Security.
Doesn't have to be
Your fence might
electrified or, doesn't have to be electrified or,
Yeah,
you
no
know.
electrified. Don't be peeing on it.
I think with the term security fence, we could find something that is appropriate, but all at the same time.
To give a
also
parent enough
not-
time to catch their kid trying to get through. it.
Yeah, we're not looking for Jurassic Park style fencing or
Correct.
anything like that, but we would certainly, something that's common sense and affordable, but still would keep children from getting into the separate area.
Okay.
We could figure
We
that out.
can't use a post and rail fence.
Okay, so do we have any more discussion on this? I think we're all, good. Okay. Yep, go ahead, Cameron.
And I know you had made a motion, I just wanted to clarify, so the motion was to approve the CUP with the added condition of the security fence and with the staff comments. Okay, perfect.
Okay, and we have a second to that. Are we, any further discussion? Let's do a roll call. Oh,
Shane.
hold on, okay, you sure you want to say?
I just have a question, and maybe to you later, but, like the permit for the building and extension and.
Yeah, so I will work internally with my portfolio commissioner, the building official, and either myself or Samantha will be back on Tuesday. We'll reach out and kind of inform you of where we're at and if that is good or if you need to go and appeal to the board. But we'll help you through the steps no matter what we determine to make sure that you get to the appropriate place and get it figured out.
Okay, let's do roll call.
Shane,
Yes.
Louise,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Adam is gone, and Tate.
Yes, motion carries.
Did I hit Sherelle?
Excellent. No, she,
Yes.
Thank you.
okay, any other items of
If I just may add one thing, we do
Yes,
have
sir.
a new staff planner, Michelle. She's in the back. She's been with the county for quite some time, but she has transferred to our department, and we're excited to have her here. She's learning quick and extremely knowledgeable already, so
Yes.
Thank you, Angela.
we're happy to
Welcome.
have her. So just to update the board on that.
Welcome to the best commission in town right here. All right, next meeting is December 15th. Any other issues?
I'll second.